We are now recording, so Susan, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Penny, so much for inviting me here tonight. As we said, the Oscars are going to be in 4 days, and millions of people all over the world are going to be watching this. So let me share my screen. If I can get in there. And okay. So the Oscars are actually the oldest major entertainment award, then beginning in 1929. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about how it got started, how it's grown and changed over the years, and intermittently I will be offering you some trivia questions. My family and friends think my trivia questions are too hard, but it's for a learning experience. There's no prizes involved, but it'll give you something to stump your friends on Sunday. So the idea of motion pictures actually dates back to 1878. When photographer Edward Muybridge was hired to use a series of cameras to take pictures of a galloping horse. He'd been hired to settle a bet on whether or not all 4 legs of the horse are off the ground at the exact same time. And yes, they are. But a side benefit of this experiment was when the images were shown together, it gave that illusion of movement. And that's how motion pictures were born. Over the next few years, a movie theater was any place where you could set up chairs, hang a sheet on which you can project an image, and charge admission. The Vitascope Theater in New Orleans, which was built in 1896, was considered the first permanent for-profit movie theater in the United States. Now, before the 1910s, movies were very short, anywhere from 30 seconds to 3 minutes. But movies kept gaining in popularity and the public demanded more and more films and longer films, which then led to the creation of the studio system to crank out more product to show these people. By the end of 1926, there are over 20,000 movie theaters across the US and nearly 100 million moviegoers every year. In fact, the box office for 1926 was just under $23 million, or the equivalent of $365 million today, which isn't bad considering admission was about a dime. But the industry was facing a number of challenges at this time, one of which is that you had church and parents and civic groups that were concerned that the adult themes in movies were a bad influence on young people. And as early as 1911, some states had already established censor boards. And by 1920, almost every state had its own censor board. The Motion Picture Producers and Distributors of America was founded in 1922, and they played a large role in managing the industry's public relations, and specifically to show that films could be respectable. And the first president of this organization was Will Hayes, who used to be the Postmaster General under President Harding. And it was his job to create self-censorship guidelines for the studios that would allow the films to be cleaned up enough to pass all these different censors. This would later be called the Production Code, or as many people refer to it, the do's and the don'ts and be carefuls of what could and could not be presented on film. Another big challenge to the film industry was the rise in unionism. Many of the creative crafts had either formed or tried to form their own unions. And between 1916 and 1921, the studios had 3 different strikes on their hands. But because of continuous battles between the studios and its workers, the motion picture producers, of which the studios were all represented, created what they called the Basic Studio Agreement in 1926. And this was the first contract between the studios and its workers. And it did address a lot of the workers' complaints. But it also specified that any negotiations between the studios and the unions would be handled by the New York offices by a committee of 5 producers and the heads of whatever studios were involved. But the LA people weren't exactly thrilled about New York handling these things. So what is a producer to do? Well, if you're Louis B. Mayer of MGM, you're going to throw a dinner party. And he invited 3 key guests to his beach home in Santa Monica. And that was director Fred Niblo, actor Conrad Nagel, and producer Fred Beatson. At this dinner, he presented them with the idea of having an organization that was made up of the 5 branches of the film industry, which at that time was producers, directors, writers, actors, and technicians. And he had set up some very lofty goals for this organization. One was to promote harmony and solidarity among its membership, and 2, to encourage improvement and advancement by the interchange of constructive ideas, and very lofty goals indeed. But Mayer had some unofficial goals of this academy as well. He was looking for a way to minimize the role of organized labor. And instead of labor disputes being negotiated by the New York offices and the union presidents, it would be the role of the academy to resolve any disputes between the 5 branches of the industry. And more importantly, it would keep the New York bosses out of their hair. So they all agreed. And 1 week later, on January 11th, 1927, they had another dinner party. They loved dinner parties. This time it was held at the Ambassador Hotel. And they invited 36 people from all different branches of the industry. And all these 36 would become founding members of what they were then calling the International Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Now, you may notice that there hasn't been any mention of awards, at least not yet. By mid-March, they've already created their articles of incorporation. They've rented offices, and they've elected their first board. And the board was made up of actor Douglas Fairbanks as president, director Fred Niblo as vice president, producer MC Levy as treasurer, and screenwriter Frank Woods as secretary. And remember, I said that the academy they wanted to act to settle disputes. And when they created their bylaws, they specifically wrote, should a matter affect the entire industry, the academy is expected to act for all in any manner that the officers and directors feel advisable for the good of the industry. So, as I said, those 36 invitees became the founding members of the academy in their 5 branches. The actors branch had 7 members. The producers branch had 12 members, or 1/3 of the membership. The directors branch had 6 members. The writers branch also had 6 members. And the technicians only had 3 members. And if you've been counting as we're going, that makes up only 34. So the other 2 members were attorneys George Cohen and Edwin Loeb. And I'm sure you noticed that only 3 of those original 36 members were women. So the first official meeting of the Academy was held on May 6th, 1927, which was also a dinner. And one of the speakers at this dinner was Will Hayes, who warned the members that dishonorable or unethical conduct or the commission of any act involving moral turpitude shall be sufficient cause for expulsion from the Academy. But to the Academy's credit, they did accomplish a lot in that first year. Firstly, the producers promised they would not cut salaries, which is something the New York bosses wanted very much. And the actors, in turn, promised no fits of temperament. But it was also the Academy that founded the first film curriculum at the University of Southern California. And yet there's still no mention of awards. So we're going to start with our first trivia question. And that is, true or false? Anyone who works in the motion picture industry can apply for membership in the Academy.
And if anybody wants to put the answer, whether they think it's true or false in the chat, you should feel, somebody says false.
Okay. Okay.
Anybody else?
It is false.
It's false, okay.
So
Okay.
let's talk a little bit about how somebody becomes a member of the Academy. Firstly, it's by invitation only. And a person must be nominated by at least 2 members of the specific branch they want to be part of. They must be a person who has accomplished distinguished work or acquired distinguished standing in the industry or made a valuable contribution to one of the branches. And they also must be of good moral and personal standing. And actually, that has not changed much over the years, except it's now a sponsorship by at least 2 members of the same branch. And a member can only sponsor 1 individual per membership cycle, which is annual. And the process, then they submit that to the Board of Governors and they vote on that. And anybody who has been nominated for an Oscar is automatically invited. So now they don't publish their exact membership number or who are members of the Academy. But I can tell you that in 1936, there were 36 members in 5 branches. In 2020, they had 9,921 voting members, and it's now increased to 17 branches and 2 at-large categories. Now, in 2021, they invited 395 new members from 50 countries. But that doesn't necessarily mean they added 395 members. It just meant they were invited. They may choose not to join. And of that 395, 89 were former Oscar nominees, including 25 winners. And in 2018, they invited a record number of 928 members to bring more diversity to the Academy, because starting in 2006, they were getting complaints that they were failing to recognize minority achievements. So, in speaking of greater diversity, our next trivia question is, who was the first female to be elected president of the Academy? And you have your choice of film editor Margaret Booth, actress Bette Davis, writer Anita Luce, or actress Mary Pickford, who was also one of the original 36. So I don't know if you want to put that in the chain. Somebody says Bette Davis.
Another Bette Davis.
Other Bette Davis.
Someone's got something in the Q&A. Hold on. Mary Pickford. 1 for Mary Pickford.
For Mary Pickford.
2 for Mary Pickford.
Okay. Are we ready for the answer?
So,
Okay. Well, the first people were correct. It was Bette Davis.
oh, I thought it was Mary Pickford.
No, she's a good guess, though. Wait, I've lost my thing, how I can do this. There we go. So she was elected in November 1941. However, she resigned a little over a month later. An article like this one says that either her health or her very busy shooting schedule wouldn't permit her to devote sufficient time to the job. But there were other articles that claim that she had her own ideas for how to run the Academy, and every idea she brought to the Board of Governors, they rejected. So she decided to quit rather than fight them. And another female was not elected again until screenwriter producer Faye Kanan was elected in 1979. And Cheryl Boone Isaacs, who was only the 3rd female president of the Academy, was the first woman of color. So in 1928, a subcommittee proposed the idea of an award of merit for outstanding work in production, in motion picture production. And initially they said they were going to consider films that were released between August 1927 and August 1928. By 1935, they will do it strictly on a calendar year, which is how they still do it today. Now, the article says the award will be a molded statuette which would be cast ornamental bronze copies. So, but how did they come up with the idea of the award? I mean, what the design would be? Well, that was the work of MGM art director Cedric Gibbons, who created the initial sketch of the statuette of a knight grasping a crusader's sword. But how did he come up with that idea? Now, this is just my humble opinion, but I did study art history. In 1920s, Egyptian art was an extremely popular motif of the Art Deco period, which also happened to be a favorite style of Cedric Gibbons. Ptah is the Egyptian god of craftsmen and architects, and is always depicted holding a scepter or a staff. Can we see any resemblance to the Award of Merit here? And another idea of Gibbons was the base of the statue. So the figure is standing on a film reel that has 5 spokes, signifying the 5 original branches of the Academy. And over the years, the base has changed slightly, taller, wider, but the statuette has basically remained the same over the years. Now, the Academy website says no model was used during the design process for the statuette. However, Emilio Fernandez was a Mexican actor and would become a respected director in the 40s and 50s. But at this time, he worked as an extra on many of the silent films with Dolores Del Rio, who just happened to be married to Cedric Gibbons at the time. So it's very possible that she introduced Fernandez to Gibbons. And Fernandez said he did pose for Gibbons, but the Academy has never confirmed that story. And he does have kind of a similar physique to the award. Now, Gibbons created the initial sketch, but the actual sculpture of the statue was the work of George Maitland Stanley, a very popular sculptor at the time, who created a number of public art pieces around California, including this Muse of Music, Dance, and Drama, which stands outside the Hollywood Bowl. And for many years, the statues were made by the C.W. Shumway and Sons Foundation in Batavia, Illinois. But then R.S. Owens, for many years, took over the creation. But since 2016, the statuettes have been made by the Polished Talix Fine Art Foundry in Walden, New York. And just because I know you're all curious, here are some quick statistics about the statuette. It stands 13.5 inches high and weighs 8.5 pounds. And it takes approximately 3 months to manufacture 50 of them. And since 1949, all the statuettes have been numbered. And they started with 501 as kind of an arbitrary number. And the number is engraved on the reel of film just below Oscar's heel. And apart from the special awards, which we'll talk about in a bit, not all of the winners received that statuette. For example, when they created the Best Supporting Actor and Actress categories in 1937, for a number of years, the winners in these and some other categories received this combination, plaque and statuette. And you can see a picture of Hattie McDaniel posing with her 1939 award. Now, all of the competitive categories receive the statuette. And the official name of the award is the Award of Merit. So how did it get the name Oscar? Well, there are 2 different versions of this story. One is Betty Davis claims that she called it Oscar because it reminded her of her first husband, bandleader Harmond Oscar Nelson. But in another story, Margaret Herrick, who was the Academy's secretary, then their librarian, and then served as executive director, was commenting she thought it looked like what she called her Uncle Oscar, which was really her cousin, Oscar Pierce. But whichever story you believe, since 1939, it's been officially known as Oscar. And here's a quick fact for you. Since 1950, Oscar winners do not own their Oscars. They must sign an agreement that states they won't sell or otherwise dispose of the statuette without first offering to sell it back to the Academy for the whopping sum of $1. And this provision it also applies to heirs or other assignees that the winner might give by gift or bequest. But you're saying, well, wait a minute, I've heard about Oscars being sold. And you're right, but those are the statues that were presented before 1950. In fact, over 150 statuettes have been sold at auction. In one recent example, Harold Russell, who was the first non-professional actor to win an Academy Award for acting for his role as veteran Homer Parrish in the movie The Best Years of Our Lives. That same year, he also received an honorary award for bringing aid and comfort to disabled veterans through motion pictures, and that made him the only person to ever receive 2 Oscars for the same performance. And in 1992, he sold his Best Supporting Actor award to help pay for his wife's medical bills. He kept his honorary one, and it sold for $60,500, which is a little over $121,000 today. But to date, the top price ever paid for an Oscar was $1.54 million in 1999. And it was the Best Picture Oscar for Gone with the Wind. And the purchaser was pop star Michael Jackson.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Current Oscar winners don't keep the Oscars, or is it being vested until it's being sold? That's the question.
Well, they get to keep it. They can keep it.
But
they can't sell it themselves.
Okay, thank you.
They have to sell it back to the Academy. And I understand in the new Academy Museum, they have a room that is nothing but Oscars that they've gotten back. Or we'll talk some that were never collected. All right, so let's talk about the first Oscar ceremony. This was held on May 16th, 1929 at the Roosevelt Hotel in Los Angeles. It was the only awards ceremony that was not broadcast on television or radio. They had 270 people in attendance, and tickets that night cost $5, which is equivalent to $82 today. But that's not what tickets actually cost today. Firstly, you can't go to the Oscars unless you've been invited, and prices can range from $150 to $750, depending on the seat location. Now, nominees and presenters don't have to pay for their tickets. Now, the first award ceremony was hosted by Academy President Douglas Fairbanks, and he just gave out all the awards. Now, this is the original invitation. I've cut it in half so that you can see it better. And so they're doing this in May. So it's the 2nd anniversary of the founding of the Academy. Now, I don't know if anybody notices something peculiar about this article, but it came out in February 23rd, which is 3 months prior to the awards ceremony. And yes, this article lists all the winners. And actually, throughout the 1930s, the results were given to the newspapers for publication so they could meet their 11 o'clock deadline on that night. And that's the way they used to do it. However, in 1940, the Los Angeles Times went to press before the ceremony even took place. So everybody knew who the winners were. So starting with 1941, the Academy has used seal envelopes so that nobody knows the winner until it's announced on the air. And this is the verso of that invitation. And you can see all the winners are listed. And the honorable mentions are essentially the other nominees, and they received a certificate. Now, one of the honorable mentions was screenwriter Gerald Duffy, who was nominated for his screenplay for The Private Life of Helen of Troy. He died in June 1928, which made him the first posthumous nomination. And Emil Jannings couldn't be at the ceremony because he was going back to Europe, so they gave him his award before the ceremony even took place. And after this ceremony in the 30s, it wasn't uncommon for the presenter to not only list the winner, but the second and third place winners, even though they wouldn't receive a certificate. Now, the first ceremony was held at the Roosevelt Hotel, but the awards have been celebrated at a number of different venues over the years. Since 2002, it's been held at the Dolby Theater, which at one point was also called the Kodak Theater or the Hollywood and Highland Center. Last year, because of COVID, they held the ceremony at Union Station so they could separate everybody. But this year, it's back at the Dolby. So, let's have another trivia question. Which of the following was never a category for an Academy Award? And you have the choice of Best Title Writing, Best Assistant Director, Best Dance Director, all of the above, or none of the above. If anybody wants to take a crack at that one.
Got a couple of, no, two people agree. I don't want to say what it is in case somebody else wants to vote. Okay.
Okay. Well, somebody got it right. It actually is none of the above.
One person voted for all of the above.
No, it's none of the above. Every one of those was, I can't, well, let me, sorry.
Oh, and someone voted for best title.
No, best title was actually, it was only at the first ceremony because that was the only ceremony where all the films were silence. So, but Best Assistant Director was a real category for a number of years in the 30s, and Best Dance Direction was also in the 1930s. So they've had and discontinued other categories over the years. They used to have a category for Best Original Story versus Best Original Screenplay. And some categories merged with others. For example, there used to be a short subject, 1 reel, and a short subject, 2 reel categories, which now we just have short subject. In the 90s, there was a separate musical score category for musical or comedy films. And for many years, the Academy had separate black and white or color categories for cinematography, art direction, and costume design. And since 1967, those 3 categories are just, they don't distinguish color versus black and white anymore. And every year, the Board of Governors entertains ideas for new categories. Some will be proposed but rejected. Some that they've rejected was one for best casting, another for best title design, your opening credits. The Stunt Association has been trying for 20 years to have a category for best stunt coordination, and it's never been accepted. Then in 2018, the Academy announced that they were going to have a new category for outstanding achievement in popular film. And the minute they announced it, they received a lot of backlash because a lot of people felt that they were implying that films nominated in other categories were not popular. So eventually they pulled it. Now, this would have been the first new category since they added feature animation in 2001. But let's look at how does a film become eligible for a nomination? Well, firstly, it must be at least 40 minutes long, unless it qualifies for the short categories. It has to be screened for a paid admission in Los Angeles for at least 7 consecutive days, beginning no later than December 31st, because it has to be released by December 31st. And that's why sometimes you'll see a film will open in Los Angeles in the holiday season, but maybe doesn't open in Chicago until late January or February. They're trying to get that in so it will be eligible for a nomination. But in Charlie Chaplin's Limelight, which was made in 1952, wasn't eligible for an Oscar until 1972, when it had a Los Angeles release and played for 7 consecutive days. The only exception are foreign language films, because these are submitted by the countries as their official selection to the Academy. Our next question is, how many times has an award category ended in a tie? And you have the choice of once, twice, more than 3 times, or it's never happened.
While you're thinking about that, there's a question that says, I think they're talking about film from the Cannes Film Festival. Do those count as foreign films or do those count as non-foreign films?
No, foreign film means it's made in the country that it's released. The Cannes Film Festival is just that, a film festival. So films from all over the world can be shown there.
So we have 1 vote for never and 2 votes for twice.
Okay. The actual answer is more than 3 times. In fact, there have been 6 instances of ties. Now, the first one in 1932, according to the rules at that time, they considered it a tie if they were within 3 votes of each other. And Frederick March actually had 1 vote more than Wallace Beery. After that, they changed it so it had to be an exact number. So in 1950, 69, 87, 95, and 2013, all of those were exact number ties. And as long as we're talking about results, here's another question. True or false? Academy voting rules prohibit Academy members from writing in nominees on the final ballot.
And while you're thinking about that, what was the short documentary film that had the ties? Do you have the titles on those?
Not on me, I'm sorry.
Okay. So right now we have 1 false and 1 true. Anybody else want to jump in there?
I hope I'm not scaring people off. This is just for fun.
Right.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry, 1 false and 2 trues.
Okay. So are we ready?
I think so.
Okay. It's actually true and false. In the early years, there was not a specific rule against writing in a nominee, and Academy members could vote for whomever they liked, even if they weren't originally nominated. In fact, in 1934, Bette Davis was a write-in for her role in Of Human Bondage, and she actually came in 3rd, and that was the year Claudette Colbert won for It Happened One Night. But in 1936, Warner Brothers decided to launch a write-in campaign for all of the categories in which 1 or more of their people weren't nominated. And that campaign did really, really well. Most of their nominees came in 2nd or 3rd in 6 different categories, including Best Actor, Best Director, Best Assistant Director, Best Score, and Best Screenplay. But one of them actually won the award, and that was the Best Cinematography Award, which was won by Hal Moore for Midsummer's Night Dream. It was after Moore's win, the Academy specifically put rules in place to prohibit write-in nominees. And here's another fast fact. Beginning in 1989, presenters began using the phrase, "and the Oscar goes to," versus "and the winner is," as they're opening the envelope. Although they got confused and they overlapped for a number of years, but now it's strictly "and the Oscar goes to." This change was made because they felt all of the nominees should be considered winners, except only one person gets to go home with the statuette. In addition to their various categories, the Academy also presents honorary awards, which were called special awards before 1948. And each year, the honorary awards are determined by the Board of Governors and honors achievements that aren't covered by existing categories. So it could be for a contribution to the industry or service to the Academy, or in many cases, a life achievement award. And the first special awards were actually given at that first ceremony in 1929. One of them was given to Charlie Chaplin, who, for writing, acting, directing, and producing the film The Circus. And in their citation to him, the Academy said that all his accomplishments put him in a class by himself. And another award that year went to Warner Brothers for The Jazz Singer, which absolutely revolutionized the industry. Now, in 1931, 9-year-old Jackie Cooper was nominated for Best Actor for his role in the film Skippy. Because the Academy felt that children would be at an unfair disadvantage to their adult counterparts if they were in the same category, they created a special Oscar for outstanding juvenile performances for performers who were under 18 years old. And the juvenile Oscar was a mini-me of the regular statuette and only measured 7 inches tall. The first juvenile performer to receive this Oscar was Shirley Temple in 1934. And technically, that makes her the youngest person ever to receive an Oscar, although it's also considered a non-competitive category. And over the years, the Juvenile Award was given out 10 times. But since 1960, juvenile actors are now back in the regular categories. Now, probably the most unique statue was this honorary award that was given to Walt Disney in 1938 for his screen achievements in the animated classic Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And it was presented to him by Shirley Temple.
Wow.
Okay, next trivia question, true or false? During World War II, when metal was at a premium, the Academy presented winners with statuettes made of wood.
Hmm.
Do you have any thoughts on that? Yes.
Saying true.
Okay.
Oh, another true.
Okay. All right, well, you guys are going to hate me because it's actually false. In support of the war effort, the statuettes were actually made of plaster and painted gold. And that's an example of one right there. After the war, anybody who won an Oscar could trade in the plaster statue for a metal one. But there actually was one time where a wooden statue was given out. And that was an honorary award in 1938 presented to ventriloquist Edgar Bergen for his creation, Charlie McCarthy. And he was presented with a wooden Oscar that has a movable mouth. And what is really cool is this Oscar lives here in Chicago. It is it's part of the permanent collection at the Museum of Broadcast Communications. So if you're ever there, you will see this. And remember, I mentioned that Betty Davis resigned because of her conflicts with the Board of Governors. Well, one of her ideas was to have statues made of wood to use during World War II. They didn't like that. Also among the, I'm sorry?
There's a note in here that just says howdy doody. I don't know for sure what that means, but there's a note in here that says
howdy doody was a puppet character in the 50s.
No, I know who he was, but I don't know why. Okay.
No, Howdy Doody was not Edgar Bergen's creation.
Okay.
But among the honorary awards is the Irving Falberg Memorial Awards. And this was named for Irving Falberg, who was head of production at MGM, who developed the company's reputation for sophisticated films. And this award is given to producers whose body of work reflects a consistently high quality of motion picture production. And the first recipient of this was in 1950, and that was given to Darryl F. Zanuck at 20th Century Fox. Now, he and producer Hal Wallace each got this award more than once. So in 1962, the Academy changed its rules so that no individual can receive this award more than once in their career. And the statue, it isn't given out every year. And to date, there have only been 30 honorees. The last time it was given in 2018 to producers Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall. And as far as I've seen, unless they're going to suddenly change it, this is not being given out this year. So the award is a bust of Irving Thalberg. And this was the original one that you see here. His widow, actress Norma Shearer, really hated this. And she actually commissioned a second one at her own expense. But they're using a new version now since 1966. It's not only 9 inches tall, so it's 4 inches shorter than Oscar, but it weighs 2 pounds heavier. And another honorary award is the Jean Herschel Humanitarian Award, which is named for the Danish actor Jean Herschel. And you may remember him. He played Shirley Temple's grandfather in the movie Heidi. This award is given to an individual in the industry whose humanitarian efforts have brought credit to the motion picture industry. Now, Herschel himself was a former president of the Academy. He was also a president of the Motion Picture Relief Fund for many years, and he actually spearheaded the efforts to create the Motion Picture Country House and Hospital in Woodland Hills, California. This award was first presented in 1956 and has been awarded 41 times over the years. The last time they presented it was 2020, and there were actually 2 recipients. It was director-producer Tyler Perry and the Motion Picture and Television Fund. And recipients of this award will receive a regular Oscar statuette. And again, nobody is scheduled to receive it this year. In addition to those honorary awards, the Academy also presents specific scientific and technical awards to honor individuals or companies whose discoveries and innovations have contributed in significant and lasting ways to the motion pictures. And whereas these used to be part of the Oscar ceremony, it's now a separate ceremony held prior to the broadcast, even up to a week before, and they just announce the winners during the telecast. Now these are actually, there is a scientific and technical awards committee that actually make the recommendation to the Board of Governors. So one of them is the Gordon E. Sawyer Award for Technological Contributions and the John A. Bonner Medal, which is given in appreciation of outstanding service and dedication in upholding the high standards of the Academy. But then there are also awards for technical achievement and a scientific and engineering award. So again, true or false, the 45-second time limit for a winner's acceptance speech came about because somebody spoke for nearly 6 minutes. I don't know if anybody wants to take a guess. We've got it.
True, true, true.
True, true, true.
True. No, 1 false.
1 false.
True.
True. Okay. And the answer is false. The time limit was actually instituted in 2002 because the 2001 telecast ran for 4 hours and 23 minutes. However, the longest acceptance speech was 5 minutes and 30 seconds and that was given by Greer Garson when she accepted her Best Actress Oscar for Mrs. Miniver. And her speech, like I said, it was 5 minutes, 30 seconds, and even the newsreel footage at the time edited down to under 4. So, as I said, after the first ceremony, the Oscars were broadcast over the radio. And the first televised ceremony was in 1953. And it was also the first ceremony to be held simultaneously in Hollywood and New York. Bob Hope was the master of ceremonies, and this was his 7th time hosting the awards. He eventually hosted the awards 18 times, either by himself or as part of a team. So I'm going to just play you the beginning. This is Academy President, screenwriter Charles Brackett, who's going to introduce Bob Hope. Let's hope the sound works.
Fellow members of the Academy, guests, friends everywhere, welcome to this very special birthday. In honor of the occasion, all the presenters tonight are to be Academy Award winners. A miniature Oscar was once voted to a man for his very special services to the Academy as a Master of Ceremonies. He's to be our Master of Ceremonies tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bob Hope.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brackett. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Suspense.
Actually, the Oscars are the only award show televised live all over the world. So, you know, if you're in London, you've got to be up very early in the morning to watch it. And the first color telecast of the Oscars was in 1966, which was also hosted by Bob Hope. Okay, we have another true-false trivia question. True or false, George C. Scott was the first person to refuse the Oscar.
Oh, nobody's biting on that one. Oh, okay.
Okay, you got a couple of them.
True and false. And false.
Okay.
And false.
Okay, I think you guys
Good
are
false.
really going to hate me. Well, it's nice to have a difference of opinion. Okay, are we ready? Okay, well, it is, if I can never get my thing back. It's true and it's false. Now, technically, screenwriter Dudley Nichols had boycotted the 1935 ceremony because there were conflicts between the Writers Guild and the Academy. So he didn't go, and he refused to pick up his Oscar for Best Screenplay for The Informer. However, he did pick it up a couple years later. Now, George C. Scott, who often referred to the Oscars as a meat parade, did not attend the ceremony and never picked up his Oscar. And then, of course, Marlon Brando's famous refusal for his Best Actor award for The Godfather was 2 years later in 1973. Here's another fast fact to stump your friends. 6 actors have been nominated in more than one film, but for playing the same character. And that is Sylvester Stallone was nominated twice for playing Rocky. Paul Newman played Fast Eddie Felson in both The Hustler and Color of Money. Cate Blanchett played Elizabeth I in Elizabeth and Elizabeth the Golden Age. Al Pacino was nominated for both Godfather and Godfather II, playing Michael Corleone. Peter O'Toole played King Henry II in both Becket and Lion in Winter. And then Bing Crosby played Father O'Malley in Going My Way and The Bells of St. Mary. Now, these are just nominations. They didn't necessarily win. But let's look at some milestones in Oscar history. And here are some of the oldest people to be nominated or win. Christopher Plummer won the Best Supporting Actor award when he was 82. Henry Fonda holds the record as the oldest Best Actor for his role as on Golden Pond, and he was 76. Jessica Tandy was 80 when she won Best Actress for Driving Miss Daisy. And Gloria Stewart is the oldest person to be nominated when she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress in Titanic at age 87. Conversely, the youngest people to win the award include Shirley Temple, which we've said was a non-competitive Oscar, but she was just 5 years old. Justin Henry was nominated at age 8 for Kramer versus Kramer, and Tatum O'Neal is the youngest person to win a competitive Oscar for Paper Moon. Now, the Oscars are one part of an EGOT, which stands for Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony, and it's considered the grand slam of show business. In all, there have only been 16 competitive winners of the EGOT, and 5 more people who have EGOTs, but at least one of the awards was a special award, so a non-competitive. Now, Lin-Manuel Miranda is only an Oscar shy of becoming an EGOT, and if he wins this Sunday for Best Original Song, Dos Oruguitas from Encanto, he will be the 17th EGOT. So hope you're all rooting for him. Now, sadly, there are some great actors who not only never won an Oscar, but were never even nominated. And here's just a few. Now, there are a lot of others, but I was just looking at movie stars of sort of the classic era of Hollywood. And here are some actresses that were never nominated. Now, sometimes the Academy makes up for this by presenting people with honorary awards for life achievement in film. And here are a few of those. And all of these recipients were never nominated for a competitive Oscar. I mean, we've talked about Shirley Temple getting the juvenile, but that's considered a special. So here's another challenging trivia. Who has won the most Oscars in their career? And you have the choice of art director Cedric Gibbons, costume designer Edith Head, Katharine Hepburn, or visual effects supervisor Dennis Muren, or none of the above.
Oh, wow. We got 3 Edith Heads right off the bat. 4 Edith Heads. Oh, none of the above.
Okay.
And 1 Katharine Hepburn. We're all over the place on this one.
Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
It's none of the above. Because the honor goes to Walt Disney, who has won 22 competitive Oscars and 4 honorary ones. He also holds a number of other Oscar records, including the most number of nominations at 59, the most number of awards in a single year, and the most consecutive awards, in which he won 10 awards in 8 consecutive years. But none of those other people are slouches. Let me just get that clear. Costume designer Edith Head holds the record for the most Oscars won by a woman. She has 8 wins and 35 nominations. Cedric Gibbons has 11 wins and 39 nominations. And Dennis Muren has 6 wins, 13 nominations, and 3 honorary awards, 1 Science and Technical and 2 Special Achievement Awards for Empire Strikes Back and The Return of the Jedi. And another fast fact is Cate Blanchett is the first actress to win an Academy Award for playing another Academy Award winner. And who was that? Well, she played Katharine Hepburn in The Aviator in 2004. And here's another trivia question. What is the longest film to win the Best Picture Oscar? And the timing on this includes the overture, intermission, and exit music. So we have, I know, just to make things more complicated. So we have a choice of Gone with the Wind, Ben-Hur, or Lawrence of Arabia. And you can't count a movie that just seems longer. It has to be an actual timing.
Okay, one vote for Ben-Hur. One vote for Lawrence of Arabia. Two votes for Gone with the Wind. Another for Lawrence of Arabia. Okay.
Okay. Well, the actual answer is Gone with the Wind, which ran for 3 hours and 58 minutes. Now, Lawrence of Arabia is close at 3 hours, 36 minutes, and Ben-Hur runs 3 hours and 32 minutes. However, the longest film to ever win an Academy Award was the Best Foreign Language Film in 1966, which was the USSR's War and Peace, which ran 7 hours, 7 minutes. But if you don't think you can stand that, there is an American version that runs 6 hours. So, mistakes during the Oscar telecast are a lot more common than you think. So our last section tonight is to look at some of my favorite moments that went a little wrong. And we're going to look at these in chronological order. So in 1934, Will Rogers was the MC and presented all of the awards that night. And when he was presenting the award for Best Director, the nominees were Frank Lloyd for Cavalcade, Frank Capra for Lady for a Day, and George Cukor for Little Women. But when Rogers opened the envelope and saw the name, he just simply announced, "Well, come up and get it, Frank." At which point, Frank Capra ran to the podium. But he wasn't the winner. But Rogers, being the nice guy he is, invited all three of them to come up to the stage and share the spotlight. But it was Frank Lloyd who actually walked away with the statue. In 1938, Alice Brady was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for her role as Mrs. O'Leary in the film In Old Chicago. And yes, that's the same Mrs. O'Leary whose cow supposedly started the Chicago fire. Now, Brady wasn't able to attend the ceremony because she had a broken ankle. And when her name was announced as the winner, a man stepped up to the podium and accepted the award on her behalf. He walked off the stage with the trophy, and he was never seen again. They have no idea who he was. They never found the statue. The Academy issued an apology to her and presented her with a substitute award a couple weeks later. The 1940 Academy Awards were held at the Coconut Grove in the Ambassador Hotel. And one of the nominees that night was Hattie McDaniel for her role in Gone with the Wind. But at that time, the Ambassador Hotel had a strict policy that did not allow Blacks, not in the nightclub and not in the hotel. So David O. Selznick, the producer, called the owner, and eventually he was granted a special favor to allow McDaniel in. But when she arrived, she was not escorted to the area where the other Gone with the Wind nominees sat, but at a table in the back of the room. Now, as I said, this was the last ceremony where the envelopes were, before the envelopes were completely sealed. So the nice thing is she knew she was going to win that night. Now, getting the wrong envelope, do we have a question?
No, but still.
Oh, I know, it's just like, really?
Right?
So, you know, a couple years ago, they had the debacle where somebody opened the wrong envelope, and that's not new. So let's look what happened in 1964 when Sammy Davis Jr. was presenting two different awards for Best Adapted Musical Score and Best Original Music Score.
The nominees for the Best Music Score, Adaptation, or Treatment are John Green for Bye Bye Birdie, Andre Previn for Irma la Douce, Lee Stevens for A New Kind of Love, Maurice Gerard for Sundays in Sibel, and George Brune for The Sword in the Stone. And the winner is John Addison for Tom Jones. Oh, they gave me the wrong envelope. Wait till the NAACP hears about this. Make no mistake this time, baby. The winner is Andre Previn for Irma La Douce.
At least John Addison knew he was going to win the next award. Then in 1977, Debbie Boone was scheduled to sing the Best Song nominee, You Light Up My Life, from the film movie of the same name. In the previous year, Oscar winner Louise Fletcher had signed her acceptance speech in American Sign Language. And the Oscar producers thought it would be cute if they had young girls behind Boone signing the song. And after the performance, Bob Hope, who was hosting, announced that the 11 girls were affiliated with the John Tracy Clinic for the Deaf. However, viewers noted that each girl seemed to be signing a different song. And it was later revealed that the only affiliation with the Tracy Clinic was that a doctor from the clinic chose the girls, and they were actually non-deaf students from a local elementary school, and basically they were just signing gibberish. And in 1984, when they announced presenter Sir Laurence Olivier, the audience went completely crazy, and they gave him a standing ovation that lasted well over a minute. And as you'll see, he was overwhelmed with the reception, but it also caused one of Oscar's more famous flubs.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you more than I have ever wanted or tried to thank anybody for such a perfectly wonderful reception. Thank you so much. I hope I won't let the occasion down too badly. I'm here to present the Best Picture Award, and the winner for this is Amadeus.
So he was so choked up, he forgot to read the nominees. So now, granted, Oscar opening numbers are not always the best. And in 1989, producer Alan Carr said his opening number would be magical, but it would be later described as the 11 minutes that ruined Carr's career forever. The number featured Rob Lowe and Eileen Bowman playing Snow White. Now, neither Lowe nor Bowman are great singers or dancers, and the number was a complete mess. And some people felt her Snow White was even a little raunchy. Well, the Walt Disney Company decided to sue for unauthorized use of its copywritten character. But later they agreed to drop the suit as long as the Academy agreed never to reuse the segment for any purpose, and it is definitely not on the Academy website. However, and you did not hear this from me, you can actually find this on YouTube. I could have put a clip here, but it was really hard to find the worst possible moment of it. Now, the year 2000 was not a good year for the Oscars. In early March, Academy members alerted the Academy that they had not yet received their ballots. Price Waterhouse confirmed, yes, they brought 10 big mail bags containing 40,000 ballots to the Beverly Hills post office. Eventually, 2 of the mailbags were found on March 7th, but they had been found in the bulk mail center, indicating the post office was treating them like bulk mail when they were supposed to be first class. So the Academy had to send out all new ballots in order to make the deadline for the ceremony. And it was after they sent out the ballots, they found the other mailbags. And as bad as this was, they had an even bigger problem that year. 10 days later, on March 17th, 10 unmarked crates that contained 55 statuettes were stolen from a loading dock in Bell, California. And this obviously made headlines all over, and the Academy posted a $50,000 reward for the missing statues. Within a few days, a salvage man alerted the police department that he had found 52 of the statues in a dumpster behind a grocery store in the Koreatown section of Los Angeles. Now, true to their word, the man received the $50,000 reward money, and he even got 2 tickets to attend the ceremony. And as they were investigating the crime, they questioned workers at the trucking company, and they eventually found one confessed and implicated another driver. And the idea, they had planned to sell the statuettes, but then got nervous with all the publicity and then just dumped them in that dumpster. But to tell you the truth, the thieves weren't terribly smart because they were caught on security cameras loading the crates onto their truck. And so when they found it, the R.S. Owens company at that time, because of this instance, changed their protocols. They would no longer ship by land, so any statues would go by air and accompanied with armed security. So it's not known how the new company that's making them ships them today. All of the found statues were destroyed because, according to the Owens company, they weren't going to hand out a stolen statue. And as I said, 3 of the statues were missing. One was found during a 2003 drug bust in Florida, but 2 of them are still missing. And of course, in 2014, John Travolta was trying to introduce Idina Menzel to perform the Oscar-nominated song from Frozen, but he obviously didn't practice reading his cue cards. So let's.
There will always be a special place in my heart for the movie musical and for the songs that create their most memorable moments. Here to perform the Oscar-nominated, gorgeously empowering song, Let It Go, from the Oscar-winning animated movie Frozen, please welcome the wickedly talented one and only Adele Dazeem.
I don't think he's ever lived that one down. Then in 2017, during the in memoriam montage that honors Academy members that passed away in the previous years, one of the listings was for 4-time Oscar nominee costume designer Janet Patterson. Unfortunately, the picture they used was of producer Jan Chapman, who was very much alive at the time and still is. And I can imagine it was a bit of a shock to her to see her own picture on the screen. And for the record, this is the late Janet Patterson. And this year, there has been controversy even before the telecast. Remember I said they announced a new category in 2018 for popular film, but then pulled it. Well, this year they invited people to post their favorite film on Twitter. And the intent was to appeal to younger movie fans. But this has also received a lot of criticism because basically they say it turns the Oscars into just another People's Choice Award. And the average person is not aware of the eligibility requirements. So a lot of votes have been for movies that wouldn't be eligible for an Oscar in the first place, something that premiered on Netflix, not in the movie theaters. And then in late February, the Academy announced that 8 of the 23 categories were going to be given out ahead of time, then edited down so they could broadcast the edited version during the show. Now, I should point out that this is something that ABC wanted, not the Academy, in order to try to boost the ratings. Now, in 2021, they drew 9.2 million viewers, which was a 51% drop from 18.7 million who viewed it in 2020. So it was an all-time low. So now personally, I'm upset because I'd rather see them cut a production number than one of the categories. And they're cutting some of my favorite categories like production design, makeup and hairstyling. But I also think it's very disrespectful to cut the film editing category and then ask film editors to edit it down. And a couple days ago, the president of YATSE, Matthew Loeb, which represents over 160,000 people working in the film industry, also voiced his complaint, saying that workers get little recognition as it is, despite being the backbone of every production. So we'll just have to wait to see how this plays out and what may happen next year. But we're going to end with one last trivia question, if you haven't been ready to kill me yet. And that is, who is the only Oscar to win an Oscar? And you have your choice of screenwriter Oscar Brady, lyricist Oscar Hammerstein, actor Oscar Homolka, screenwriter Oscar Millard, and sound designer Oscar Langerstrom.
One for Oscar Homolka, one for Oscar Langerstrom, one for Oscar Hammerstein, one for Oscar Millard, we needed somebody to vote for Oscar Brady because he's
Okay, are we ready?
Okay. That's it, yeah.
All right. And it was Oscar Hammerstein, who has a total of 5 nominations for Best Song, and he won twice for the songs The Last Time I Saw Paris and It Might As Well Be Spring. Now, all of the other Oscars were nominees in their respective categories, but didn't win. So I know I've thrown a lot of information at you, but I just want to thank you, Penny, for inviting me here tonight. And I hope I've given you all some good trivia to stump your friends if you are having an Oscar party in person or virtually on Sunday. And I'll be happy to stick around if you have any questions.
Thank you. While we're waiting for questions to come in, that was really fascinating. Thank you.
And I just want to thank you all for this wonderful award. It's not a real Oscar. It's fake. It has a star, not the scepter.
Someone says, how does that impact the Oscars category? But I'm not, the digital age. How does that impact the Oscars?
Well, it's hard because there weren't as many films released in the theaters, which is one of their big requirements. It has to be released in Los Angeles. Now, they used to say it had to be released first, but now they're saying no, it can. So something might have been premiered on Netflix, but then shown in a theater, and then it counts.
Okay. So that loosens it up a little bit.
Yeah.
It says, there was something before this, hold on. Does anyone know in this day and age who comes in second?
Yes, but they're not releasing it. Price Waterhouse knows everything.
The person who comes in second knows, right?
No.
No?
No.
Oh, well, that's a bummer. I would want to
the
know.
The numbers are not released because it would just set up bad feelings between people.
Ratings have been going down year after year. Do you think they will stop airing the Oscars?
It's still a big money winner for the network, so probably no. But like I said, I think they're cutting off their nose to spite their face by eliminating these categories when they could do other things, you know.
Yeah, that seems unfair. Somebody says, several people have said thank you. Several people have said.
Oh, thank you so much.
Wasn't No Man Land an Oscar nominee? We need more women categories.
I think it was. I'm not sure. You know, honestly, I see less and less of the films because I'm not going to the movies as much as I used to. Used to be that I saw everything that was nominated except documentary and short subjects. But now I don't know. I watch way too much Turner Classics right now.
Oh, I've been doing the Criterion collection.
That too, yeah.
And also
They're
some,
guaranteed.
thank
Hard,
you.
you're paying $10 and it's like, are you going to enjoy this movie or not?
Right.
You know, and there are a lot of movies I've seen and I'm like, this is not Oscar worthy as far as I'm concerned. And some of them may win. So I'm not going to say which.
Thank you so much. I had no idea how interesting the Oscars could be. The history of the it was fascinating.
I think the funny thing is it was really basically to break the unions. And then they decided to war themselves.
Does Canada have their own awards?
Yes, they do. It's called the Palme d'Or, the Golden Palm. And they have different awards. And some are for, it's not as extensive as the Oscars. It's more, here's the best film, here's the best director, and a couple actors.
Wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. So now when you watch the Oscars, you're going to have all this information behind you and you'll know a little bit more about how things work there.
Yeah. Anybody else last minute? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I thoroughly
Definitely thanks to the Eisenhower Library.
I loved your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting.
They're fun.
All right. Well, thank you so very much for doing this. It was great. I really enjoyed it. I don't think I've watched the Oscars for years, but yeah, I would be more inclined now. You know, I usually just wait to hear what the answer is.
Yeah, I usually tape it
Uh-huh.
because I like to see what people wore and these categories, but it's like, I really don't want to hear all the acceptance speeches. So it's like, oh, they came one, fast forward to the next one. You know, so I can watch a 3-hour show in about an hour.
Is there any kind of a documentary that's ever been made on the history of the Oscars?
Oh, I'm sure there has been. I don't know of one off the top of my head, but
Call
I'm
the
sure
library. We'll check for you tomorrow.
there you go.
We can look.
We'll do that.
Okay, Susan, thank you so very, very much. I'm going
Thank
to
you.
stop recording.